I'm Abigail Galván. Welcome to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. The White House and pro-lifers. A high-ranking official from Health and Human Services addresses the good and the not so good from the president's second term. Abortion in Asia. A closer look at the fight for the unborn in Japan and the Philippines. Plus, important steps. An update on 2 marches for life in the American Midwest. After a video message from President Donald Trump to the March for Life and an in-person speech from Vice President J.D. Vance, pro-lifers are again focused on the White House response to life issues. This includes credit and concerns regarding the Department of Health and Human Services. Live Action's Lila Rose recently asked HHS and the FDA to take action to curb the distribution of the widely used abortion drug mifepristone. And late last month, several pro-lifers, including Joan Bell, were detained for protesting in front of the HHS building over the distribution of mifepristone. Pro-lifers also applaud several recent Health and Human Services moves. HHS has ended the use of human fetal tissue obtained from abortions in agency-funded research. Late last month, it rescinded guidance from the Biden administration that required pharmacists to keep harmful abortion drugs in stock. And it is moving to end so-called gender transition surgeries and treatments for minors. U.S. bishops applaud the Trump administration's move to expand the pro-life Mexico City policy. The bishops say the move will limit the funding of abortion abroad while also blocking money from overseas programs that promote gender ideology. Bishop Daniel Thomas from the Committee on Pro-Life Activities adds, quote, "As we applaud these actions protecting preborn children, we renew our commitment to dialogue with and pray for the administration as we seek to advocate for all human life from conception until natural death." For more, we turn to Admiral Brian, the Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services. Admiral Christine, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Abigail, it's a real pleasure to be here today. As a Catholic, it's very exciting to be here with EWTN. I do want to start off by saying thank you so much to President Donald Trump and Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., for all that they're doing to really make America greater than she's ever been, but to make America healthier than they've ever been. This combination, President Trump and Secretary Kennedy, they care about every man, woman, and child in this country, truly.
Well, thank you. And it means so much to have you here with our viewers to just show us, as you said, like what is this administration's stance on a lot of these issues. Now, we'll dive right in if you don't mind. So EWTN's National Catholic Register recently wrote, quote, "President Trump will forever merit the pro-life movement's esteem for his role in facilitating Dobbs. But the unfortunate reality is that the number of U.S. abortions has climbed, not fallen, since Roe was overturned and Trump returned to power. That's largely a consequence of this administration's unwillingness to roll back the Biden-era policy changes that facilitated much wider distribution of the abortion pill, which now accounts for 2/3 of all U.S. abortions." Admiral Christine, what do you have to say to pro-lifers who are concerned about the widespread availability of mifepristone?
No, I understand that concern, and I want to tell you that when the Dobbs oral arguments were going on, I stood with the Catholic Medical Association. We physicians from all over the country, we stood in our white coats in front of the Supreme Court as the arguments were going on, and we were a mighty force that day, and we are still a mighty force. Regarding the mifepristone question, the commissioner of the FDA, Dr. Marty McCary, has certainly committed to doing a review of the safety of mifepristone. I want you to know that study is ongoing. Data is being collected, so that is ongoing.
Oh, that's comforting to hear. Now, late last year, news that the FDA approved a generic version of mifepristone came out. The reports were quite a blow to those who are fighting for the unborn. Do you have any updates on the production of this generic drug, and can anything be done to limit or even stop it?
No, and I don't have any updates except to say, again, that review is ongoing because we want to make sure we have the best data about the potential harm of mifepristone so that women can make truly informed consent decisions. If women are considering using that drug, they need to understand what the implications may be. The study is ongoing, data is being collected. Commissioner McCary is doing that.
As we mentioned, there have been some good news too coming from this administration. Why was it so important for the HHS to end the practice of using human aborted tissue for agency-funded research?
Yeah, and that was just recently released by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, that any study that uses tissue, fetal tissue from elective abortions will not be eligible for funding. That includes ongoing studies, it includes renewals and new studies, and this is really important. I think this shows the administration, Secretary Kennedy, and the director of the NIH, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. I think it shows their commitment to saying that gold standard science is going to lead us, but we're not going to compromise our values when it comes to doing things like using tissue from aborted fetuses.
And I bet it stops some of the demand for the supply as well.
Well, I think it probably does. I think that's a very good point. Thank you for making that. Again, there's not an incentive, if you will, to get this aborted tissue to put into studies because those studies aren't going to be funded. So this is tremendously important, and it's another clear example of how we stand for life at the Department of Health and Human Services.
Now, under the second Trump administration, HHS is also targeting so-called gender-affirming care for minors. Can you tell us more about what you're doing to stop this?
Absolutely. This is incredibly important to the country. It's incredibly important to those most vulnerable, these minors who suffer from gender dysphoria, because gender dysphoria is a real condition, a mental health condition. What we did at the Department of Health and Human Services, we actually produced a report, and then we had a peer review of that report. In other words, scientists, well-known scientists who reviewed the report, and they came out and said, yes, what we decided from the report, what we showed was absolutely backed in science, specifically that using sex-rejecting surgeries, that using cross-sex hormones, that using castrating chemicals, that is not the way to treat these vulnerable children. The way to treat the children is with compassionate mental health care. We know that individuals who suffer from gender dysphoria, if you treat them in that way with mental health support, I personally believe, my personal belief is that if the parents agree, then I think that also pastoral care is important. But if you use the mental health support, that the vast majority of these children are going to be very happy in their own skin. We don't need to be cutting off body parts. We don't need to be giving them chemicals that is going to cause irreversible harm for the rest of their life. We have been very strong about this in the Trump administration. We have been led by Secretary Kennedy, and we're never going to back away from these things.
Yeah. And the Catholic social teaching, just for our viewers, is that God doesn't make mistakes. And so, as you said, like if people experience gender dysphoria, anything that can do to accompany them towards just recognizing that God made them for a purpose and intentionally made as they are.
It was over the course of the weekend with the March for Life, I heard our Deputy Secretary at the Department of Health and Human Services, Mr. Jim O'Neill, said it best in a speech. He said very strongly, little boys are little boys, little girls are little girls, and that does not change.
Indeed. Now, you spoke about your background. I understand you're among a group of pro-life doctors who are outside the Supreme Court, as you said.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that experience was like? Just
It was amazing.
personally.
So I was up with the Catholic Medical Association, but there were other Christian medical associations, physicians, nurses of all different faith traditions. There were Orthodox Jews who were there. There were Protestants, Catholics. We were together in front of the Supreme Court. We were showing our concern for life. We wanted the justices in the entire country to know that as medical professionals, we know what science says. We know that life begins at conception, and we stood strong for that day.
You're a practicing Catholic.
I am.
Could you tell us what role does your faith play in your work, both as a medical practitioner and now in this new role at HHS? If you could tell us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yes, I am a practicing Catholic. And like I said, that's part of the reason it's so special to be here today. I'm going to have to give a shout out to Father Mitch Pacwa because I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, and Father Pacwa is a friend. He is a mentor. He is a wonderful confessor, but he's a wonderful priest. And so, Father Mitch, I hope you're watching. But no, my Catholic faith guides me. Every decision that I make, of course, I don't set my faith aside at the door as I enter this position or as I practiced as a physician. And that's one of the things, again, that President Trump and Secretary Kennedy have have been so strong on, which is conscience protections. Again, we are not going to allow healthcare practitioners to be disparaged or be discriminated against because of their faith, right? If there's something that your truly held belief is, as I can't participate in abortion, we're not going to let you be discriminated against. In this administration, again, under President Trump, under Secretary Kennedy, we faithful don't have to check our faith at the door to practice medicine or science.
A landmark case in New York may spell the beginning of the end for transgender surgeries in minors. A New York jury awarded $2 million to a young woman who at 16 identified as transgender and underwent a double mastectomy on the advice of her clinicians. The young woman, Fox Varian, regretted her surgery and no longer identifies as transgender. The jury in Westchester County, New York, found a psychologist and plastic surgeon liable for medical malpractice in recommending and performing the irreversible breast removal surgery. An effort to advance the French government's controversial euthanasia bill has stalled. Several lawmakers blocked the measure, agreeing with church teaching, which strongly opposes assisted suicide. Even some of the bill's supporters voted against it as it was written. The head of a group fighting assisted suicide applauded the results. Alex Schadenberg from the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition said in part, quote, in an unusual alignment, conservatives and socialists voted together, albeit for sharply different reasons. The future of the bill remains uncertain. The battle for the unborn is also taking place at the international level, especially in Southeast Asia. In Japan, hundreds of thousands of abortions are performed every year, and the country's birth rate is falling at a drastic rate. In the Philippines, abortion is banned in all circumstances, and yet every year there are millions of illegal abortions in the Catholic country. It's a story that the pro-life organization Heartbeat International is following closely.
I think there's something like 70 million abortions worldwide annually. Less than 1 million are taking place in America.
Ellen Fell is International Program Specialist for Heartbeat International, a network of more than 4,000 pro-life pregnancy help organizations around the world. Fell says pro-lifers all over the globe should keep an eye out on Asia, especially Japan and the Philippines. In Japan, abortion is legal up to 22 weeks if the mother's life is at risk, she is undergoing significant economic or social hardship, and in cases of rape or incest. Around 140 to 160,000 abortions are performed in the East Asian nation every year. However, Fell says those numbers only reflect how many abortions are being reported.
Obviously, the number of abortions due with the chemical abortion pill, it's much higher. We know that typically where the abortion pill is permitted and in use, that 60 to 70% of abortions are due to the chemical abortion.
In the Philippines, abortion is banned in all circumstances, and still each year millions of illegal abortions take place in the Catholic country. Fell says where abortion is illegal, very few women will come forward for help. She also says this is an opportunity for the church and pregnancy resource centers to get more involved.
Very few women will come forward even if there's no medical issue, but there's a psychological issue or an emotional issue, because they can't, there's no safe place really for them to come and say, I've done this thing which is illegal in my country. So that kind of highlights the need for the church and pregnancy help centers to be willing to welcome women who are struggling with their past abortions.
Abortion, especially in Japan, is more than a moral issue. The number of newborns there is decreasing faster than projected, with the number of annual births falling to another record low in 2024. The health ministry said around 686,000 babies were born in Japan in 2024, a drop of 5.7% on the previous year, and the first time the number of newborns fell below 700,000 since records began in 1899. This is the 16th straight year of decline.
The Prime Minister has called this a, quote, quiet emergency. China, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea all are in this situation of having a very, very low, dangerously low fertility rate. And they are beginning to be called actually the super aged societies because there are so few young people now, and the like people my age, 60 and over, people who are in that retirement zone, are becoming the majority of the population. So I know that the Japanese government has tried doing like incentives for having more than one child. They have also tried providing subsidies for fertility treatments, but with a longish history of family planning and a longish history of really it's better for the country if we have one child per family. That's a difficult situation to reverse. They have to change. They have to reverse that by 2030, is what I was reading, which is only 5 years away. But the whole mindset of one child has been in for at least a generation. So how you can turn that around in 5 years, I don't know how the government can do it. So I would say that even though they're calling it a quiet emergency, it is not a quiet emergency.
Sunday marks the feast of St. Josephine Bakita. The 20th century woman born in Sudan had once been enslaved, and the church uses her feast to ask for the liberation of those caught in modern-day slavery and trafficking. EWTN Vatican contributor Zofia Schubach has more on the efforts to help those caught in the scourge of slavery.
Abuse, sexual and labor slavery, torture, of course, unlawful deprivation of liberty, forced marriages, forced abortions, multiple crimes committed against us.
Nearly 50 million people are currently being trafficked, according to the 2023 Global Slavery Index. Carla de la Cuesta was one of them. 25 years ago, she was rescued alongside other girls from the hands of her traffickers in Mexico. It was thanks to the intervention of Interpol, the international criminal police organization, that Carla's alleged perpetrators were captured and the girls were able to return home.
It's only today, 25 years later, that the whole country understands that what we experienced was called human trafficking. Of course, for me, the law is extremely important thanks to this protocol.
The end of 2025 marked 25 years since the establishment of the Palermo Protocol, the first agreement that internationally recognizes the definition of human trafficking, with a mission to prevent, suppress, and punish it. And yet, modern slavery continues to increase, driving over $236 billion into the hands of criminals. The Sovereign Order of Malta, alongside other groups, organised an international conference at the Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome to discuss what needs to be done further to minimise this crime as much as possible.
Sometimes the traffickers are people that are trusted individuals. So what do? We ensure it's important for us to raise awareness so that we recognize such incidences as trafficking. We recognize the elements of the crime. And the reason why I say so is because children who are victims of sexual abuse through trafficking have endured so much trauma. So not only should a support system be child-centered, be rights-based, but also they should factor in the experiences or the trauma these children have endured.
Father Hans Zollner, Jesuit priest, psychologist and theologian, known for his work in the field of safeguarding against sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, turns to the Passion of Christ to remind us that there is always hope.
Jesus Christ himself has been a victim of violence, and he suffered death because he was unjustly treated. So we believe that he is risen, and that gives us hope that with all the evil that is happening today, we still have some hope, some perspective that this is not the end of it.
He believes that the protection of all people is our responsibility as Christians.
That is, to understand that child protection or the safeguarding of all people is something that is written into the gospel. And therefore it should be written into our missions, whatever that is, in an academic institution, in social apostolate, in parish life, in retreat houses and so forth. So in every church life aspect, there is also an ingredient of safeguarding, keeping people safe in safe space, safe relationships and safe practices is what Jesus asks us to do.
In Rome, Zofia Tubak for EWTN Pro-Life Weekly.
Coming up, marching in the Midwest. We take you to 2 rallies for the unborn in the heartland of America. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm your host, Abigail Galván. The 2026 National March for Life in Washington, D.C. is now in the books. The battle for the unborn continues at the state level, with 2 more states holding their pro-life rallies.
Are we ready to march for life?
Pro-lifers from across the state of Indiana joined each other for a march through downtown Indianapolis and rally at the state capitol building. Bishop Kevin Rhodes from the Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend began the rally in prayer and was followed with speakers like Indiana Governor Mike Braun, Attorney General Todd Rokita, and other state lawmakers. U.S. Senator Jim Banks spoke about the pro-life work he accomplished in the Hoosier state last year and made a promise.
Over the last year, I've introduced and led over 20 pro-life bills in my first year in the Senate, and I promise all of you today, I'm going to keep it up. I'm going to keep working on it, keep fighting for life in the United States Senate.
In Kansas, to kick off the state's March for Life, around 1,500 Catholics joined each other at the Topeka Performing Arts Center for a pro-life rally. The Ignite for Life rally, hosted by the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas, included live music, ministry tables, mass with the bishops of Kansas, and motivational speakers. One of the speakers, a student at Benedictine College, shared how his mother chose life and offered him up for adoption. He says the greatest blessing is that she is still a part of his life to this day.
That blessing of her being around and that sacrifice and the humility that it takes to give your child, to trust your child to other people, takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of love. But I'm so incredibly thankful for the sacrifice that she made. Adoption is something that's overlooked this day and age. And I think it's definitely a route that more people should look into, especially to combat the abortion culture, and especially in the state of Kansas being a destination state for abortions.
After the Ignite for Life rally, pro-lifers from across the Sunflower State marched from the Topeka Performance Arts Center to the south steps of the state capitol building for another rally.
Stand for life, no matter what! Stand for life, no matter what!
The Rally for Life had several speakers, including lawmakers, clergy, and other pro-life leaders. Archbishop Emeritus Joseph Naumann of the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas was also in attendance. Since the abortion issue is now up to the states, he emphasized the importance of energizing people to vote for life, especially young people, and that we must turn our culture of death into one for life.
We've had a culture now that for over 50 years has supported abortion as a supposed right. And many of our young people, they've grown up with this culture of death. So we have a lot of education that we have to do. We also, and I'm really proud of what's happened here in Kansas in terms of ramping up what our pregnancy resource centers are doing. So those we can't protect with law, we can rescue with love at this point. And of course, underneath all of that, we have to pray a lot.
That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Be sure to like and follow us on our social media channels. You can find us at EWTN Pro-Life on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And sign up for our newsletter, The Pro-Life Pulse, EWTNnews.com/pro-life. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.